I was just looking through the bios. Darren, weird coincidence. I am also from the Milwaukee area.
Oh, very cool.
And I'm also a high school teacher.
What do you teach?
I teach English.
Very cool.
Yeah. But I found that kind of hilarious.
Are you originally from Milwaukee?
Yes.
I've only lived here about 4 years, originally from North Carolina.
Gotcha.
Nice. Welcome.
All right, we are live, good to go. So for everybody attending or checking us out on Facebook, my name is M. McDonough. I am the Outreach Programs Coordinator for the Piper Center for Creative Writing at ASU, Arizona State University. To tell you a little bit about this program tonight, the Piper Poetry Month Anthology launch. So in April of 2020, as the country was beginning to shut down or had completely shut down, my team and I had an idea to kind of create a little boost in everyone's morale and I guess just engagement with poetry as we were shifting gears into a completely online medium and engagement. That became the Piper Poetry Month, which was 30 prompts in 30 days disseminated through our various social media. The prompts were created by 3 partner artists that have worked with the Piper Center in the past, Sean Avery, Marco Piña, and Jabari. Oh my gosh, why can't I remember Jabari's last name? I'm so sorry. Jabari Allen. And these artists really graciously came up with just like little snippets, little ideas. A traditional poetry month will usually, a lot of different organizations will do 30 prompts in 30 days. We wanted to take it a little step further. We wanted to make sure that people's engagement, especially poets that were writing to these prompts, were able to continue thinking about them and continue creating outside of Poetry Month and outside of that little momentary exercise. So we offered this opportunity for poets to write to any of the prompts that interested them most and send them to us. We were really delighted and lucky to have a really beautiful collection of poems returned to us and submitted to this contest. We picked a collection from those submissions that I think speaks to just what's possible when even in very dark, uncertain times, poets will continue to create and envision a world that is worth creating in. So I'm very, very proud to get to welcome these poets tonight. We have been, like I said, just delighted and so excited to be able to read their work throughout this last few months and to have this opportunity. I will be dropping the link to the finished anthology, the online anthology, in the chat for our participants here to check out. And without further ado, I'm going to just jump in and introduce our first reader for the night. So Amy Casey will be our first reader for the evening. Amy Casey writes poetry, poem comics, and fiction. Her work is influenced most directly by landscapes, both environmental and personal. Learn more about her work at www.amycasey.com. She is from Milwaukee and high school English teacher. Please welcome Amy Casey.
Thank you, Em. I'll be reading my poem, Freshwater Ritual. Lake water, the waves call, when I hold the driftwood against my ringing jaw. Lake water, the waves call, with my thumbs running over the shape of a trilobite in stone. When I hold the driftwood, I feel my great-grandmother's ankles aching with cold and joy at the God in the water. The God who cries the wind against my ringing jaw, rush of water heavy and whole, in its own will it churns. My lungs crack at the sight, and I pour clear out with joy at the God in the water. It can never be known by the breathing, but that is the promise. In its own will it churns. Reaching for the daughter, who it has known ever in different bodies. A trilobite in stone, my great-grandmother, the same sound, the old call, aching with cold and joy.
Thank you, Amy. Did you want to do another one with us tonight?
I'll pass on to the next. That's all I had ready.
Okay. Sorry to throw people on the spot. All right. Well, thank you so much. That was such a beautiful way to start us out. And again, if anybody's listening, check out those poems and several more on the website. So our next reader is going to be Alina. Let me go to my bios here. Alina Chisti is an honors student at Hamilton High School. She is currently managing editor of the Ink and Feather Literary and Arts magazine and a junior Scribbler magazine. She's very passionate about writing, acting, film, and photography. Please welcome Alina.
Thank you for that intro. The first poem I'm going to be reading is called Becoming Liberated. And it's basically about how, I guess, everyone faces certain pressures and expectations to be a certain way or follow a certain path. And we can take a lot of these expectations to heart because they're coming from people whose opinions we really care about and we really value. But sometimes that can cause us to become really inauthentic to who we really are and disconnected to what we actually want to do in life. So becoming liberated. Writing is a way to let go, to stop thinking in perfect squares, to stop letting your thoughts weigh you down. The words in your mind no longer have to be chewed on, spit out, and regurgitated in your frying mind over and over again. There is pain in your sinking heart that slowly comes back to shore with every word written down. I'm afraid this notepad is the only place where your voice isn't louder than mine, or where your thoughts don't dominate my own. You say you aren't shallow, but it's hard to believe that when all you value is your physical appearance and comments from strangers. You pretend you don't care about a perfect reputation, but I know you do. Do I hinder it? Just leave instead of standing there acting distant and embarrassed. I hate that you make me this insecure. You shouldn't be capable of inflicting this upon me. I'm the most confident and the most insecure with you at the same time. If I made a list, you'd seem ideal, but this feeling wouldn't exist if your presence didn't daunt me, if I didn't hear your nagging voice in my head all the time, making me feel like I needed to change my everything. There's no doubt that you've made me change. Some say for the better, some are indifferent. But I shouldn't change for you, nor tie my self-worth around your approval. I don't need your forceful hand on my shoulder guiding me in the right direction. I'll carve my own path, the one that's right for me and under my own terms and conditions. That's the only right way. I know I'm bound to mess up on the way, but I'll be the sole one accountable for it. I'm not holding you accountable for any part of my life, nor for my failures, and certainly not for my success. I know I'm not perfect, but I'd rather be you, but I'd rather be me than what you want me to be. Sorry, I got like notifications during that.
Alina, did you want to do a second poem?
Yeah, so for my second poem, I'll just start it. I think it's pretty self-explanatory. It's called Reflections of the Past. We were a functional unit that would occasionally encounter a few hurdles. Wrong. We were a dysfunctional entity that could only occasionally and temporarily synchronize. We grew up peeking behind door hinges, accidentally stepping on shards of glass jammed into kitchen tile crevices, nervously looking out our bedroom windows to red and blue flashing lights, constantly fearing a broken home. Our current self-expression is a distorted reflection of what we've witnessed. We act on momentary selfish impulses. We let empathy become our unyielding nemesis. We no longer reign in the perilous burning fire within us, but instead light up barrels and let the world burn with us. We let rage become our obsession, permitting it to strip us bare to our most dreaded selves. We kill our logic when it starts to stifle our perception of being on the moral high ground. We don't mind dismantling everything we've established over the years for a second of satisfaction. We don't mind screaming mindlessly until our temples burst just to project our pain onto one another. We take note of each other's biggest insecurities, vices, and traumas to throw it at each other conveniently like scraps to feed a flame. You're a failure. You've lost everyone. You're nothing. If our pain and rage are flames, it won't be long before the flames burn our house to the ground. After the flames of indignation lick every corner, what did we gain other than a satiated ego? While standing amongst the ashes and the smoke, we'll justify our unrestrained fury on our past, forgetting that we're our own individuals who consciously make our own decisions and are capable of self-control. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate it. This is why we did this, just to get to hear work from all over the country and hear different perspectives. I'm really, really excited again with just like this kind of dialogue that we have created. So our next poet for the evening will be Jaime Herrera. Jaime Humberto Herrera Montero was born in El Paso, Texas, but grew up across the border in Ciudad Juarez, Chihuahua. Growing up, he shuttled back and forth thousands of times between two cities, countries, cultures, languages. This bicultural, bilingual upbringing continues to inform who he is and his writing. He is a professor of English at Mesa Community College. He thanks his parents for having the vision to teach him two languages. Maria Luisa Montero de Herrera, Jaime Humberto Herrera Alvarez. Please welcome Jaime.
Thank you, Em, and thank you for having me here as well. So my poem is called There Will Be Death, number 45 says. There will be death, number 45 says, and I go outside to get air, sun, to breathe. I sit on the porch bench in front of the large pot with the agave, tall stalk rising from the leaves, flowers blossoming. I hear the zoom, zoom, zoom of its wings before I see the hummingbird darting in and out of the porch, then alighting and dipping its long beak into the flower, wings beating dozens of times per second. It's seemingly still in front of me, hovering before me long enough for me to take it in, my eyes fixed, mouth open, my brain and heart beating dozens of times a second as well, if that is possible. In this moment, it is possible. Then it is gone. And in this heartbeat of a moment, I am forgetting about death and remembering that I'm forgetting it is spring. Thank you.
Jaime, did you want to do one more for us?
I do. I have one more. This one's a bit lighter. This is called Chile Relleno Burrito Love Song. As I eat my chile relleno burrito, I fondly recall all the chile relleno burritos I have eaten. The ones at 3 a.m, me standing, perhaps listing slightly, outside the window at the Bajari bar, downtown Juarez. I watch the cook, Manuel, as he makes fresh flour tortillas with one hand and heats the chile relleno with the other. He slathers the tortilla with refried beans, puts the chile relleno in, rolls it, and hands it to me, hot through the bar window, me drunkenly mesmerized by this holy communion. As I eat my chile relleno burrito, I remember walking up the mountains to the Christ figure in Guanajuato, food vendors along the winding road calling out to us, as we make our pilgrimage. That fateful and beautiful day, I discover that my pilgrimage is not to the top of the mountain, not to the second tallest Christ figure in the Western Hemisphere, but to that stand, to the chile relleno burrito that allows me to taste what heaven might be like. As I eat my chile relleno burrito, I think about taking on two of my best friends in spirited debate about which is better, the taco or the burrito. It is pretty much a draw. Tacos al pastor versus chicharrón burritos, shrimp tacos versus shredded beef burritos, and then, when it is all tied, I bring out the big gun, the chile relleno burrito. My friends clasp their hands and bow to me as they leave to explore Mexico City. I savor my victory alone with my chile relleno burrito. As I eat my chile relleno burrito, I think of the chile relleno burrito I made myself that morning, the chile relleno from the night prior's dinner, the tortilla I heated up that morning, the beans I refried 2 days before. I wrapped the burrito carefully in foil and placed it on the dash of my car. I retrieved the burrito from the car midday, warm from the late October Arizona sun. Alone in my office, I close and lock my door, letting the chile relleno burrito take me away to those other places, those other times. Thank you.
Man, a million snaps. Thank you so much, Jaime.
Thank you.
Yes, I am gonna keep it pushing. We really appreciate everyone attending tonight. This is, again, it's such a pleasure to hear different poems. It's a very specific sweetness that I have missed. So thank you all. We're gonna welcome Darren Littman next. Darren Littman is a high school mathematics teacher in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. He was the first mathematics major to win the North University Undergraduate Poetry Prize in 2015 for his poem Suppose. His work has appeared in Strange Horizons and the 2017 Riesling Anthology of Science Fantasy Poetry. He can be found online at thewritingwolf.wordpress.com. Please welcome Darren Littman.
Thank you so much for having me. My mouth is still watering, Jaime. Amazing visuals. So the first poem I'd like to share with you is called The Conversation. Mister, he said, the students here don't call us by name. Can I talk to you after class? So we linger as the others empty the classroom. He's an A student. Does he think I made a mistake grading his last exam? Never once has he had to ask questions about content. I could give him formulas blindfolded, and his computations would still be correct. Instead, he stands there awkwardly, biting his lower lip, chewing the inside of his cheek. There's a video, he says, going around online. I thought you should know. I stared at him blankly, my stomach splitting like polar ice caps in the summer, and maybe a minute passed, or seconds, until he added, I want you to know I still respect you, as if he knew, now others didn't. I thanked him, and he left. There is only one video of me and my ex, filmed at a small cafe in Mexico City, sunlight and quaint. We shot the video 3 times to get the wording right, because we kept on laughing, and he was camera shy. I never thought to remove it when the relationship ended. It simply became part of the past. And 2 days later, I still listened for talk behind my back in the hallways. Is this what it feels like to be bullied in high school? A while later, in advisory, one of my boys asked, are you, you know? And what could I say to balance integrity with dignity? Thank you. So I would like to share a second poem as well. I really appreciated all of the prompts. Writing poetry definitely helped me get through those first bits of quarantine and lockdown. So this is the second poem. It's called Crumbs in the Kitchen. I've never used my oven as much as I do now. The hearth is the heart of the home, but an oven is all this apartment's got. The warm spot, sit close enough and maybe I won't feel so lonely. 6 weeks ago, the sink had been full of dishes for a month. Now I wash them daily. To measure and portion all I've got left into white plastic bowls for mixing. Cooking makes a good excuse to call my mother. I've got a question, I say when she answers, and it takes 40 minutes or an hour to let her go. Google would be faster, but the recipes can wait. The hardest part is waiting for the oven to heat. Everything is mixed and risen, with bread topped with pink salt because it makes my lips pucker when I bite into it. This is not an adequate replacement, but for now, it'll have to suffice. I made a whole meal of 1 loaf and a stick of butter before I tried my hand at sugar cookies from scratch. Look, Ma, no mix this time. I emptied my tequila bottle at Friday's happy hour. I'd have tipped the bartender, but he needed the quarters to wash a few months of leftover laundry, even though he's only worn a single pair of sweatpants and 2 t-shirts since he started lockdown. It was the last bottle I had brought back from Mexico when I was still engaged to a man who lives there. Cuddling in his extended stay hostel was impossible. It got so hot, we fell asleep only holding hands. Now I try to hold my dog's paw, but she pulls it away. The oven has a crust now, settling along its bottom, sedimentary or igneous. The passage of time has become like a river, depositing crumbs that turn to smoke and set off the alarm. I fan the air with a collapsed box from Amazon that I'll recycle when it's safe to go outside again. My dog is running from the beeping, so I open the window. Is it spring yet? Would Wisconsin weather even be any different? The fire in the oven is only partly a metaphor, but the birth is factual. I place a living seed inside it. It multiplies, grows hands and feet, a babbling face, and 9 months later, the kitchen timer dings. I reap my harvest, and then I eat it. They say don't let the sun go down on an argument, so I make peace with my food. I offer, I offer my labors at the counter like cardio, place the pan within the burning altar, and God returns the bounty with my prayers. It is the womb that gives life to the not living, bound by the still steel walls I bang upon, knowing my mother holds her hands against the other side, her fingers promising comfort amid isolation, eager to once again feel freedom from separation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Darren. We really appreciate it. These are lovely, gorgeous pieces all. So I'm so stoked to get to hear not only the poems that were in the collection, but also just everyone's real like depth and deftness with their range. So we've reached our final poet for this evening, and then we'll maybe have like a little bit of discussion and talk back. So without further ado, Michelle Sefton will be our final poet this evening. Michelle Sefton's books include My Inspired Life, A Poetic Journey, Being a Woman, Overcoming, and Being a Woman, Becoming, with a third and final book in the Being a Woman collection coming soon, titled Being a Woman, Forthcoming. All titles can be found on Amazon. She also publishes poems, stories, and original photographs weekly on her blog, myinspiredlife.org. When she is not writing or photographing, our beautiful state, she assists Arizona author Sandra Marinella with her narrative writing online workshops. Please welcome Michelle Sefton.
Thank you. I just want to say thank you, Em, for the opportunity to read and share, and everyone involved in the project. I've been writing nonstop pretty much since last August, after leaving a high school English classroom for many years. And the ASU prompts were just a lovely addition to what I was doing, and especially at the beginning of what we've all been going through this year. So I appreciate it. My poem, titled Buried Roots, is based on the prompt, which is the place I'm from. I'm actually from Mesa, Arizona, and Jaime, you are teaching at what was my first college in the East Valley. So thank you for that. Buried Roots. I drive by that house on a street named after a flower, across from a school named after a poet, stopping just long enough before anyone notices. The stranger staring intently at the house on the corner, peering beyond the sense-added fence, past faded stucco, watching a child touch and smell fresh 2x4s now hidden inside. As she imagined her future room beyond the see-through walls, I see the faded crosswalk that once kept small feet inside the lines. Feet that sprinted toward a tall pole after eyes looked both ways. A few minutes late, joining others standing close, hands to hearts. Catching a teacher's glare with my eyes, while my eyes joined others looking toward the sky. A clinking chain and a snapping claw, as we recited words that began our day. The school across the street, much more than a window view, it was my sanctuary. I noticed the now covered ground that once nourished healthy trees, that began as springy saplings planted on a day that blew hair, branches, and the scent of rain. An approaching storm brought urgency to the task of fertilizing and moving dirt. Whipping wind did rush, but left untouched a moment that made time stand still. A magic release when I did as I was told, crinkling the leaf in my small hand, darkened it, and transformed it into the same smell that nursed us back to health. The magic and branches now gone, leaving behind forgotten and buried roots. I miss the yellow hand-sewn coverings, revealing sun even on a cloudy day. Curtains framed by outside ivy that belonged on an English countryside. Chipping away paint, revealing the fate that would someday be its own. Until that day, when all would be stripped away, the overgrown leaves created a secret garden and a dreamlike hideaway for that little girl tucked inside. I laugh when my eyes move along the short fence on the west side, remembering the chicken coop and the rooster that peered above. Wood and wire formed together to hold birds that gave us scrambled. Ahead of a future backyard trend, the planter and maker of birdhouses had to abandon our morning dozen when neighbors complained about the sunrise cockadoodlings and the constant cluckings. I remember balancing on 8 wheels and escaping when a friend counted to 10, playing in a nearby field, making tumbleweed castles and treehouse forts, climbing and flying on playground equipment not protected by a locked fence. Hand-delivered grapefruits and marriage proposals by grown Billy with Down syndrome. Venturing up the hill to a nearby cemetery, our hearts racing while we listened for ghosts. These things and more I remember about the house on the corner, next to a school named after a poet, but not all things I miss. I don't miss swimming in the neighbor's pool without another friend who was not allowed in because she had darker skin. I don't miss the childish part of me that chose to dive in instead of standing up to the man who chose hurtful prejudice. I don't miss the late night searching for a husband and father who left work on time but sometimes failed to make it home sober. I don't miss the angry words and slammed doors behind the ivy walls, the clothes scattered on the lawn when the one searching had enough. I don't miss the hurried departure, the stolen chance to say goodbye, driving away with just a few belongings to an unknown destination, returning to the house on the corner when the little girl became the idle stranger sitting outside peering in. Thank you. Just the one. Mine tend to be long, so I'll keep it at one.
Thanks so much, Michelle. I really appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
So exciting to have like all the different voices here. So I was gonna actually take it back to Amy to get one last poem from her before we kind of open it up to see if anybody has questions and maybe do like a little bit of a talk back. So one last one from Amy.
Happy to do it. Sorry for panicking being the first one. Like, another poem?
Yeah,
Yes,
it's a tough spot. Yeah, thank you for coming back.
absolutely. This one's called Pick Me Up at 7. 1. This was before I saw what he'd become one night, standing before the dark bedroom window. Chest pale, flannel pants slung low, tied with a drawstring. I was too young to know the proper names for want. I didn't recognize the false omen, felt certain we'd both still be here once I learned the names. 2. We sat on the hill, cutting class. It was June. We stared at the parking lot. He imagined the university in Chicago, while I tried not to think of crushing his hips in my hands. The tan of his knees spoke easy things. The shape of a brother's jaw, some lyrics from Cabaret, his words chimed over my crooked bottom teeth. 3. We were in our 20s when he died. I tried so hard to get back to grade 9 that time broke for a second, and I saw him standing still in dark violet light, R&B slamming slow, whirls of the cheap disco ball spinning bubbles of light into his eyes, bursting like the smack of a boy's thin, exuberant body leaping into the quarry lake. All life, all sprawl, whooping. Thank you.
Fantastic. That was worth the wait. Thank you, Amy. We really appreciate it. I want to wrap up with if anybody in the audience here has any questions they want to like drop in the chat or the Q&A, we can do a few of those. I can start by just asking a panelist, I mean, what maybe what spoke to you about the prompt that you chose to pursue and then submit? You know, why that particular thing, and where did that inspiration take you? So if anybody wants to chime in. Yeah, Jaime, please.
So I think as many of us have probably experienced over the last few months, I was having a particularly anxious, sort of claustrophobic day in the house. And I was watching TV, which is the worst thing to do. And the president had just announced that there were going to be deaths. That's literally what he said. And so I had to go outside and just catch my breath. And the prompt asked to write something about how we were feeling during the pandemic. And so I was very fortunate that a hummingbird literally just came into my field of vision, and so I wrote the poem. But that's what brought it on, this very anxious moment. And one of the things I like about writing is it helped me process the moment, and I felt so much better, so much calmer afterwards. Thank you.
Thanks. Did anybody else have a reason that the prompt that they chose kind of spoke to them in that moment, or why it's the one that they gravitated towards? Yeah, Michelle?
I actually responded to several prompts. I had a lot of fun just kind of going down the list, and that was number 4. So it was one of the first ones. I liked and I have the prompt right here. I liked the contrast. The prompt gives the contrast of home is where the heart is and versus home is where the hatred is. Both references, one to a song and the other one to, I believe it's a poem, I'm not entirely sure, but so I like the contrast because, and I think a lot of people can relate to that. And in my particular poem, reflecting on my childhood, I will occasionally drive by my house in the East Valley. And so that imagery of me driving slowly or being idled outside is based on what has happened a few times through the years. And then just remembering those things that are no longer, trees that are no longer, that my mom and I planted, and hence the name Buried Roots. And the school across the street, so many memories of darting across the street to make it to the pledge, which students used to do. gathered around the flagpole outside. And the another memory that's no longer is a school that's not protected by a fence. So just a few thoughts about that prompt.
Yeah, that was something that I think spoke to our readers a lot, is just like the multiple levels of memory that piece goes into. So I think that was really powerful. Well, if there are any like questions from our attendees, or if anybody has any questions or final thoughts for this evening, as I said, definitely check out the full anthology. Dropped it in the chat, and it's also on the Facebook Live comment. Again, I really appreciate coming through. Actually, Chrissy White had a question. What is everybody writing about right now? I've actually started just writing a fantasy novel, because I am finding escapism pretty important right now. Is anybody else excited about something that they've been working on?
So I haven't been working on anything actively. One reason why I appreciated the prompts so much in April was that my mind is often so over the place, it's hard to focus on one thing. So a prompt gives me that that point that I can crystallize something from. I know I'm brainstorming ideas for National Novel Writing Month, since we're only like 21 days until NaNoWriMo begins. Normally I go fantasy. We'll see what happens this year.
The Piper Center is actually doing a NaNoWriMo event where we're having like live write-ins on Zoom, if you want to check that out too.
I can hop in. I used the panic and hyper focus of the pandemic descending to finish my novel manuscript that I've been working on for 8 years. So it is now wrapped and out being queried. So
Congratulations.
Thank you. My big writing triumph, but I'm actually struggling to write new things now. It's like, it's a sense of loss that you have to sort of work through when you finish a big project. So I'm currently seeking new inspiration.
Yes, like a new relationship. You're like, I gotta put myself out there. Yeah, that's great. One participant or of our attendees asked, what's your favorite line from your selected poem or poems? Is there a line that specifically like you come back to, or one that you feel like was maybe like the heart of your piece? It's hard to pick for me.
Go ahead. From the second poem I read, Chile Relleno Burrito Love Song, I like the part I wrote about, and it's a little bit hard to understand. I don't know if I did it justice, but there was this bar in downtown Juarez, and I was too young to go into the bar, but I wasn't too young to buy beer at the store. So I'd often show up after having quite a few beers, and I couldn't go into the bar, but outside the bar there was a little window into the kitchen, and you could literally just buy burritos through this window. And I would just stand there and watch. I called him Manuel, I don't know his name. I watched the cook just make the greatest burritos in Juarez. And I was struck by the image as I was writing it, because it seemed to me a kind of communion. I don't know if it was because I was drunk or what, but he made these burritos and it just hands them through the window to me, and I eat them. And I remembered, that Catholic ritual of the priest giving you the host and you putting that host in your mouth. I don't mean to be irreverent, but I really like that image. I don't know if I did it justice, but I like that image. I like that line of him handing me the burrito through the window. And burrito is, It's wonderful sustenance. It can take you to heaven also. So I like that. Thank you.
That was my favorite line. I mean, when you were like, "This is what heaven tastes like," I'm like, yes.
Yeah, that's what it is.
My favorite line from my second poem that I think kind of sums up the main message is, after the flames of indignation like every corner of the house, what did we gain other than a satiated ego? And I really like that line because I think the whole poem is really about the destructiveness of anger and how we become our worst selves and we kind of dismantle everything in one moment of anger, and we can destroy like these relationships that mean so much to us just for this moment of momentary satisfaction. And you kind of just, in the aftermath of like a big fight or something, you kind of just look at what's left, and there's nothing really other than like maybe your satiated ego if you won the fight. But it's kind of like, wow, I really destroyed this relationship, and what did I gain from it? Nothing really. You're just kind of standing in the ashes after that. So I kind of liked that part of it, and kind of the importance of self-control and like self-regulation. I know that was kind of dark compared to what we've been talking about.
I think that was.
I like that. It's good that image of fire. You know, fire is so all-consuming. I like that image of fire. I think it's a good way to make that analogy between the destructiveness of ego in a relationship and that nature's force of fire. I like that.
Thank you.
Michelle, did you have your hand up?
Yes. So to answer your question, the line, there are a lot of fond memories in the first half of this poem. The line that has the title, in my small hand darkened and transformed it into the same smell that nursed us back to health. The magic and branches now gone, leaving behind forgotten and buried roots. I like I chose that one not only for the title, but this idea of being a child and the wonder that we have. And I remember crinkling, it was a eucalyptus tree, that smell and smelling that for the first time, and it felt like magic. And that reminds me of being a child, because I was a child. But then I also would like to mention the second half, which are the things that I don't miss, and the lines about not swimming with another friend. That was painful to write, but I also feel like it was an apology as an older person. And it wasn't a situation that I chose or created, but I was happy to have a moment to put that in writing and share that. And I will share this poem with that person who's now a professor in Virginia. So good for her, but she hasn't seen the poem, but now that we have the link, I will share that with her.
That's very cool. That's great.
I remember, yeah, reading that poem as well, and that was definitely a line that stood out to me, because I feel like it's a really important turn in the piece, and it's kind of the reflection of what does it mean to be, what does it mean to be an adult and to have understanding of the world in a completely different perspective than you had. Okay. Well, at the risk of having dead air or anything, I really, again, I can't tell you all how deeply I appreciate you coming tonight. Everybody that was able to participate. If you're interested at all in sharing this link, it will be on the Piper Facebook page to send to people. If you're interested in that, we really thank you all for attending, and we thank you all more than anything for your work, and we really look forward to creating again with you, to continuing to hold this space for everyone as in this medium, in this virtual setting. It has its challenges, but I think it's also again, it's extremely gratifying for me to get to share this space with you. So I really thank you all for being here. With that, I am going to turn off the Facebook Live. Bye, Facebook.